Strip, right here, right now. Prove you're nothing special. Elara Bennett stood frozen on the stage of the Global Innovation Summit. 500 investors watching, cameras flashing like lightning, and her husband Marcus Kane demanding she humiliate herself in front of the world. His mistress Sienna Cross stood behind him, arms folded, smirking like she'd already won. The conference hall went silent. Elara's hands trembled at her sides. Her heart beat so hard she could hear it in her ears. But she didn't move. She couldn't. Not yet. Because in exactly 43 seconds, everything would change as she was counting down in seconds to a decision that would end up destroying her supposed husband, Marcus Kane. Now let me take you back to where this war really started. But before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories reach. And listen, only people who support Marcus and his manipulations won't hit that like and subscribe button. So if you're Team Elara, if you believe in justice and seeing a genius woman reclaim everything that was stolen from her, if you want more stories about people who refuse to stay down, then smash that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Now let's get into this story about betrayal, brilliance, and the sweetest revenge you'll ever witness. Marcus stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking against the stage. He grabbed Elara's wrist and pushed her forward. Pain hit up her arm, but she bit down on her lip, refusing to cry out. The investors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few whispered to each other, but no one intervened. Why would they? Marcus Kane was a tech billionaire. Elara was just his wife. Or so they thought. "You've been lying to everyone," Marcus hissed in her ear, loud enough for the front row to hear. "Pretending you're some genius. My mother believes it. The board believes it. But I know the truth. You're nothing without me." Elara glanced at the digital clock on the wall behind him. 38 seconds. "Marcus, please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Not here. I beg you." Sienna laughed in a high sound that grated against Elara's nerves. "Oh, honey, you don't get to beg anymore. You had 3 years to prove yourself. All you did was play house and take credit for Marcus's work." 29 seconds. Marcus released Elara's wrist and turned to face the crowd. His smile was wide, confident, dripping with arrogance. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. My wife has been under a lot of stress lately. Mental health issues, you understand. We're working through it." Gasps rippled through the audience. Elara's stomach twisted. He was painting her as unstable, broken, weak. 20 seconds. She straightened her spine. Her fingers stopped trembling. Something cold and sharp settled in her chest, replacing the fear. Marcus had played this game for 3 years. He'd stolen her designs, her algorithms, her entire life's work, and slapped his name on it. He'd convinced the world that Kane Industries was his empire when every line of code, every breakthrough, every innovation came from her mind. And now he wanted to strip away the last piece of her dignity. But he made one critical mistake. He thought she had no power left. 15 seconds. Elara reached into the pocket of her blazer and pulled out a single piece of paper. The contract. The one she'd signed 3 years ago in a hospital room while her sister Ava lay dying. The contract that bound her to Marcus Kane for exactly 3 years in exchange for $1.8 million to save Ava's life. The contract Marcus' mother, Victoria, had forced her to sign, knowing Elara had no other choice. 10 seconds. Marcus noticed the paper in her hand. His smile dropped. "What are you doing?" Elara unfolded the contract slowly, deliberately. "Reading." "Reading what?" Sienna snapped. 5 seconds. "The expiration date." The clock hit 0. Elara looked up, her voice steady and cold. "As of this moment, my contract with Kane Industries is terminated. I resign from my position as lead robotics engineer. I resign as Marcus Kane's wife, and I'm taking back everything you stole from me." The room erupted in noise. Investors stood. Cameras flashed. Marcus's face went from tan to pale in seconds. Sienna's mouth dropped open. "You can't do that," Marcus shouted, lunging toward her. But before he could reach her, a figure stepped out from the crowd. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp hazel eyes and a jawline that could get anyone's attention. Dylan Chen. Elara's first love. The man she'd left behind 3 years ago without explanation. The man she thought she'd lost forever. "She just did," Dylan said calmly, positioning himself between Elara and Marcus. "And if you take one more step toward her, we're going to have a problem." Marcus stared at Dylan, recognition dawning on his face. You're the boyfriend from college, the one she dumped." "She didn't dump me," Dylan corrected, his voice like steel. "You manipulated her into leaving me. But that ends today." Elara's breath caught. Dylan. He was here. After 3 years of silence, of wondering if he hated her, of imagining him moving on with someone else, he was standing right in front of her, protecting her. "Dylan," she whispered, "how did you—" He turned to her, and for a moment, the entire room disappeared. "I never stopped looking for you, Elara. I knew something was wrong, so I hired investigators. I found out about the accident, about your sister, about the contract, about everything he did to you." Tears blurred her vision, but she blinked them back. Not here. Not now. She had to stay strong. Marcus recovered quickly, his arrogance snapping back into place. "This is pathetic. You think you can just walk away? You signed a non-compete contract. You can't work in robotics for 5 years. You're finished." Elara smiled for the first time all day. It was a small, dangerous smile. "Actually, Marcus, you should read contracts more carefully. The non-compete only applies if I remain employed by Kane Industries. Since I just resigned, it's void." Marcus's face twisted with rage. "You conniving little—" "Watch your mouth," Dylan warned. Sienna stepped forward, trying to regain control. "This is ridiculous. Marcus, call security. Have her removed." But before Marcus could respond, another voice rang out from the back of the hall. "That won't be necessary." Every head turned. Victoria Kane, Marcus's mother, walked down the center aisle like a queen approaching her throne. She was elegant, composed, and terrifying. Elara's stomach dropped. Victoria was the one who'd orchestrated this entire nightmare, the one who'd dangled Ava's life over Elara's head and forced her into this marriage. Victoria reached the stage and looked directly at Elara. "Ms. Bennett, I believe we need to have a conversation." "We have nothing to talk about," Elara said coldly. "Oh, but we do." Victoria's smile was thin. "You see, I'm aware that you're planning to start your own company. EC Dynamics, I believe? Elara and Chen. Very clever." Dylan tensed beside her. "How do you know about that?" Victoria ignored him. "And I'm also aware that you possess certain intellectual property that technically belongs to Kane Industries." Elara laughed. It was a bitter sound. "You mean the intellectual property I created? The algorithms I wrote? The robots I designed? None of that belongs to Marcus. He couldn't code his way out of a paper bag. But you created them while under contract." Victoria countered smoothly. "Which means they belong to the company." "Actually," a new voice interrupted, "they don't." A man in a sharp gray suit stepped onto the stage, carrying a briefcase. He was older, maybe 50, with silver hair and the demeanor of someone who'd won 1,000 courtroom battles. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus demanded. "Gregory Walsh, Ms. Bennett's attorney." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "And I have documentation proving that every patent, every algorithm, every piece of technology attributed to Kane Industries was developed by Elara Bennett using her own resources, on her own time, before she ever signed your contract." Victoria's composure cracked. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Walsh handed her the folder. "Take a look. Time-stamped code, independent witness statements, even security footage from Ms. Bennett's college lab showing her working on the first prototype 3 years ago, before you ever approached her with your contract." Marcus grabbed the folder from his mother and flipped through it frantically. His face went from pale to green. This can't be real." "Oh, it's very real," Walsh said. "And if Kane Industries continues to claim ownership of Ms. Bennett's work, we'll file a lawsuit so comprehensive it'll bury your company in legal fees for the next decade." Elara felt a surge of satisfaction watching Marcus's world crumble, but she kept her expression neutral, professional. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her gloat. Victoria recovered first, her mask slipping back into place. "This is a minor setback. We'll resolve it privately." "No," Elara said firmly. "We won't. I'm done being manipulated by you, by Marcus, by anyone. From this moment on, I control my own life." She turned to Dylan, who was watching her with something close to awe. "You said you built EC Dynamics?" He nodded. "Waiting for you. I knew you'd come back to me eventually." "Then let's go." They started walking off the stage together. But Marcus wasn't finished. "Wait!" he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. "Elara, you can't do this. I'll destroy you. I'll make sure no one in this industry ever works with you again. You'll what, Marcus?" Elara stopped and turned back to face him. "Ruin me. You already tried that for 3 years. You took credit for my work. You isolated me from my friends and family. You made me believe I was worthless. But here's the thing you never understood. I was never weak. I was just waiting for the right moment to leave. And that moment is now." She walked off the stage, Dylan at her side, and didn't look back. The investors erupted into chaos behind them. Questions were shouted, cameras flashed, but Elara kept walking, her head high, her heart pounding with adrenaline and relief, and something that felt dangerously close to freedom. Outside the conference hall, Dylan led her to a sleek black car. He opened the door for her and she slid inside, her legs finally giving out from the emotional weight of what just happened. Dylan climbed in beside her, and the driver pulled away from the curb. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Elara turned to him. "Why did you come back?" "Because I love you," Dylan said simply. "I never stopped. When you disappeared, 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost you forever. But then I started digging. I found out about the accident. About your sister, about the contract Victoria forced you to sign, and I realized you didn't leave me by choice. You were trapped." Tears spilled down Elara's cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you. I wanted to explain. But Victoria said if I contacted you, she'd stop paying for Ava's treatment, and I couldn't risk that. Ava was all I had left." Dylan reached over and took her hand. "I know, I understand, and I'm not angry. I'm just glad you're free now." Elara squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. For 3 years she'd been numb, cold, isolated, but now, sitting beside Dylan, she felt something thawing inside her chest. "Where are we going?" she asked. "EC Dynamics headquarters," Dylan said. "It's small right now, just a renovated warehouse in the tech district, but it's ours. I've been preparing for this day for months. I have a team ready, equipment ready. All we need is you." Elara's mind was already racing. Ideas, designs, algorithms she'd been developing in secret for the past year, hidden on encrypted servers Marcus could never access. She'd known this day was coming. She'd planned for it. "How much time do we have before the Innovation Summit?" she asked. 3 months, Dylan said. "Why?" Elara smiled. It was a real smile this time, full of determination. "Because that's when we're going to destroy Kane Industries." Dylan raised an eyebrow. "Confident?" "No," Elara corrected. "Certain. Marcus's robot is a shell. It has no emotional processing capability, no adaptive learning. It's just a glorified mannequin with a voice recognition. But I've been working on something better, something revolutionary, and with your resources and my brain, we're going to debut it at the summit and make Kane Industries obsolete." Dylan grinned. "I missed this, your ruthless strategic mind." "I missed it too." The car pulled up outside a industrial building with tinted windows. Dylan helped Elara out and led her inside. The space was incredible. High ceilings, state-of-the-art equipment, workstations set up in a collaborative layout that reminded her of her college days when she and Dylan used to dream about starting their own company. A team of engineers looked up as they entered. Elara recognized some of them. Former Kane Industries employees who'd been fired for questioning Marcus's leadership. They stood and applauded. One woman stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Ms. Bennett, we heard what happened at the summit. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." Elara felt her throat tighten. "Thank you, but I didn't do it alone. Dylan made this possible." "We all made it possible," Dylan said, addressing the team. "And now we have 3 months to build something that will change the robotics industry forever. Who's ready to work?" The team erupted in cheers. Elara rolled up her sleeves, feeling energy surge through her veins for the first time in years. This was what she'd been missing. Purpose, collaboration, freedom. "Let's get started," she said. The next 3 months passed in a blur of 18-hour days, cold pizza, and breakthrough after breakthrough. Elara's algorithm was genius-level work. It allowed robots to read micro-expressions, detect emotional states, and respond with genuine empathy. Not programmed responses. Real understanding. Dylan handled the business side, securing investors who believed in their vision. He was brilliant at it, charismatic, strategic. Everything Marcus pretended to be, but never was. Meanwhile, Kane Industries was falling apart. Elara heard through industry contacts that Marcus couldn't replicate her work. His team was failing. Investors were pulling out. The robot he'd promised for the summit was malfunctioning in every private demo. He was desperate. That's when Sienna Cross made her move. She showed up at Marcus's office claiming she was the president of the Global Tech Alliance, an influential industry organization. She promised to fix his robot problem for $10 million a year. Marcus, desperate and foolish, believed her. What he didn't know was that the real president of the Global Tech Alliance was Elara herself. She'd been elected 2 years ago, but kept her identity private to avoid Marcus's interference. Sienna was a fraud, a con artist who'd failed out of college and spent the last 3 years scamming wealthy tech executives. Elara found out about Sienna's scheme through her GTA contacts. At first, she considered exposing Sienna immediately, but then she realized something better. Let Sienna dig Marcus's grave deeper. Let him waste his money. Let his robot fail spectacularly at the summit. Then, when he was at his lowest, Elara would reveal the truth and watch his entire empire collapse. Patience, strategy, precision. The Innovation Summit arrived faster than expected. Elara stood backstage with Dylan, her heart racing, but her mind clear. Their robot was ready. The presentation was flawless. Everything was in place. Dylan squeezed her hand. Nervous? Terrified, she admitted, but also excited. "You've got this," he said. "You're the smartest person I've ever met, and after today, the whole world will know it." Elara smiled. Then the announcer called Marcus's name. She watched on the backstage monitor as Marcus walked onto the stage, his confidence forced and brittle. Sienna stood in the front row, arms crossed, smiling like she'd already won. Marcus launched into his presentation. Big promises, bold claims. He talked about the future of AI and emotional intelligence and adaptive learning. All buzzwords, no substance. Then he unveiled the robot. It was sleek, expensive looking, impressive at first glance. Marcus commanded it to speak. The robot's mouth moved. Robotic words came out, stilted and awkward. The audience clapped politely. Then Marcus asked it to read his emotional state. The robot stared at him with dead eyes. Its processors whirred audibly. Then it said in a flat monotone, "Error, unable to process request. Emotional recognition module not found." The audience murmured. Marcus's face went red. "Try again," he commanded. The robot tried and failed. again and again. Then, in front of 500 investors and live-streaming cameras, the robot's systems overloaded. Sparks flew from its neck joint. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and it collapsed onto the stage with a loud metallic crash. The audience gasped. Some laughed. Marcus stood frozen, humiliation written across his face. Sienna jumped to her feet. "This is unacceptable. I told you the calibration needed more time." But her outburst only made things worse. Investors started leaving. The live-stream chat exploded with mocking comments. Marcus stumbled off stage, his career crumbling in real time. Then the announcer called Elara's name. She walked onto the stage, calm and composed. Dylan followed, standing beside her in solidarity. "Good evening," Elara said into the microphone. Her voice was steady, strong. "My name is Elara Bennett. 3 years ago, I developed the core technology that made Kane Industries a household name. But my work was stolen. My credit was erased, and I was trapped in a contract that nearly destroyed me. Today, I'm here to show you what real innovation looks like." She gestured to the wings. A robot walked onto the stage. It moved smoothly, naturally, with fluid grace. It approached Elara and turned to face the audience. "This is Echo," Elara said. "The world's first fully empathetic AI. Echo doesn't just recognize emotions. Echo understands them. Watch." She turned to Echo. "How am I feeling right now?" Echo studied her face for 3 seconds. Then it spoke in a warm, human-like voice. "You're nervous, excited, hopeful, and underneath all of that, you're relieved. Because today, you're finally free." The audience erupted in applause. Elara smiled. "Echo is powered by the adaptive empathy algorithm, technology I developed independently before I ever worked for Kane Industries. And starting today, EC Dynamics will begin licensing this technology to companies worldwide." An investor in the front row stood. "Ms. Bennett, I'm prepared to offer $50 billion for exclusive partnership rights." Other investors shouted their offers. The numbers climbed higher and higher. Elara raised her hand for silence. "Thank you. My team will review all offers. But first, there's something I need to address." She turned to face the camera broadcasting the event worldwide. "Marcus Kane has spent 3 years claiming my work as his own. He's lied to investors, he's manipulated his employees, and he's abused his position of power. Today, the truth is public, and I encourage anyone who's been harmed by Kane Industries to come forward. Justice will be served." The applause was deafening. Backstage, Marcus watched the monitor, his face twisted with rage. Sienna stood beside him, realizing her scam was about to be exposed. "This is your fault," Marcus hissed at her. "You said you could fix this." "I tried," Sienna snapped. "But your robot was junk from the start. Elara must have sabotaged it before she left." "She didn't need to sabotage anything," a new voice interrupted. Victoria Kane appeared from the shadows, her face cold with fury. She held a tablet displaying bank records. "Because Sienna Cross isn't the president of the Global Tech Alliance, she's a fraud, and you paid her $10 million for nothing." Marcus went pale. "What?" Victoria turned the tablet toward him. "I had her investigated after your robot failed. Sienna Cross failed out of college 8 years ago. She has no credentials, no expertise. She's been scamming tech executives for years, and you fell for it." Sienna's confident mask shattered. "I can explain." "Save it," Victoria snapped. "Security is already calling the police." Sienna bolted, but security guards blocked the exits. Within minutes, she was in handcuffs, screaming about how she'd been set up. Marcus stood frozen, his world collapsing around him. Victoria turned to her son, disappointment etched into every line of her face. "I tried to help you. I gave you Elara's brilliance, and you wasted it. You threw it away because of your ego. Now Kane Industries is finished, and so are you." She walked away without another word. Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. On stage, Elara finished her presentation to a standing ovation. Dylan wrapped his arm around her shoulders and kissed her temple. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it," she corrected. As they walked off stage together, Elara felt lighter than she had in 3 years. The weight of Marcus's abuse, Victoria's manipulation, and her own silence was finally gone. She was free, truly free. But freedom came with a price she hadn't anticipated. 2 days after the summit, Dylan's assistant burst into their office with urgent news. "There's a problem," she said breathlessly. "Someone leaked false information to our biggest investor. They're claiming Elara stole Kane Industries' proprietary code. The $50 billion deal is frozen." Elara's stomach dropped. "What? That's impossible. We have documentation proving everything was mine." "I know," the assistant said. "But the investor is spooked. They want a full forensic audit before proceeding. That could take months." Dylan slammed his fist on the desk. "This is Marcus. It has to be. He's trying to destroy us out of spite." Elara's mind raced. She'd anticipated retaliation, but not this fast, not this aggressive. "Get me Gregory Walsh," she said, "and find out who leaked the false information. I want names." The next week was a nightmare. The false accusations spread through industry circles like wildfire. Investors who'd been eager to partner with EC Dynamics suddenly went silent. Media outlets published speculative articles, questioning Elara's integrity. And through it all, Marcus remained conspicuously quiet. Elara barely slept. She spent every waking hour combing through documentation, preparing her defense. Dylan worked alongside her, refusing to let her face this alone. Then, on the 7th day, their forensic analyst discovered something. "I found the source of the leak," he said, pulling up security footage on his laptop. "It came from inside Kane Industries, but it wasn't Marcus who sent it." "Then who?" Dylan demanded. The analyst turned the laptop around. The footage showed Sienna Cross before her arrest, meeting with a janitor in the Kane Industries server room. Money exchanged hands. Then the janitor accessed Elara's old workstation and copied files onto a USB drive. "Sienna planted evidence," the analyst explained. "She stole fragments of Elara's work 3 years ago and hid them in Kane Industries servers. Then she leaked them now to make it look like Elara stole from Marcus. It's a setup." Elara felt rage boil in her chest. Sienna, of course. The woman had been planning this for years. "Can we prove it?" she asked. "Already did," the analyst said. "I have time-stamped metadata showing the files were created before Elara ever signed her contract with Kane Industries. Plus, the security footage is time-stamped too. It's ironclad." Dylan grinned. "Then let's bury them." Elara stood. Her exhaustion vanished, replaced by cold determination. "Set up a press conference, invite every major outlet, and make sure Marcus and Victoria know about it. I want them to see this." The press conference was held at EC Dynamics headquarters. Journalists packed the room, cameras lined the walls. And in the back row, Victoria Kane sat with a stony expression. Marcus wasn't there. Rumor had it he was hiding in his penthouse, drowning in whiskey and denial. Elara took the podium. She looked directly into the cameras. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "Over the past week, my company has been targeted by a smear campaign designed to destroy my reputation and my business. False accusations of intellectual property theft have been spread by individuals with a vested interest in seeing EC Dynamics fail. Today, I'm here to set the record straight." She nodded to Dylan, who began playing the security footage on the large screen behind her. The room went silent as they watched Sienna bribe the janitor, watched him copy files, watched her smile as she walked away with stolen data. When the footage ended, Elara continued. "This footage proves that Sienna Cross, working in coordination with Marcus Kane, orchestrated a scheme to frame me for theft. The files she leaked were fragments of my own work, stolen 3 years ago and planted to make it appear I took them from Kane Industries. but forensic analysis confirms these files were created before I ever signed a contract with Marcus Kane. They belong to me. They always have. A journalist raised her hand. Ms. Bennett, do you plan to press charges? Yes, Elara said without hesitation. Against Sienna Cross and anyone else involved in this fraud, including Marcus Kane. Another journalist called out, "What about Victoria Kane? Was she involved?" Elara's eyes found Victoria in the crowd. The older woman's face was unreadable. That, Elara said carefully, remains to be seen. After the press conference, the industry response was immediate. The investor unfroze the $50 billion deal. Other companies reached out, eager to partner with EC Dynamics. And within 48 hours, the police issued arrest warrants for both Sienna Cross and Marcus Kane. Sienna was already in custody, but Marcus had disappeared. For 3 days, he evaded authorities. Then, on a rainy Thursday evening, he was found trying to board a private jet to a non-extradition country. He was arrested on the tarmac, handcuffed, and taken into custody. Elara watched the news coverage from her office, Dylan beside her. "How do you feel?" he asked. She considered the question. "Empty. I thought I'd feel vindicated, triumphant, but mostly I just feel tired." Dylan pulled her close. "That's because revenge doesn't heal wounds. It just closes chapters. Then what does heal them?" He smiled. "Building something new, moving forward, loving and being loved." Elara rested her head on his shoulder. "I think I can do that." But there was one more chapter that needed closing. 3 days later, Elara received an unexpected visitor at EC Dynamics, Victoria Kane. The older woman looked smaller somehow. Older. The confidence and power that once defined her seemed diminished. "May I come in?" Victoria asked quietly. Elara hesitated. Then she nodded. They sat in Elara's office, an uncomfortable silence stretching between them. Finally, Victoria spoke. "I owe you an apology." Elara raised an eyebrow. "Just one?" Victoria's lips twitched in something that might have been a smile. "Several, but I'll start with the most important. 1. I manipulated you. I used your sister's life as leverage to trap you in a contract that benefited my son. I convinced myself it was for the greater good, that Marcus needed you to succeed. But the truth is, I was selfish. I wanted my son to be brilliant, even if I had to steal someone else's brilliance to make it happen." Elara's jaw tightened. "You kept my sister sedated for 3 years. You knew she could wake up, but you paid the doctors to keep her unconscious so I'd stay obedient. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Victoria's eyes glistened. "Yes, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. Regret doesn't undo damage." "No," Victoria agreed. "It doesn't, but perhaps this will help." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. She placed it on the desk between them. Elara stared at it. "What is that?" "A confession," Victoria said. "Everything I did, everything Marcus did, signed and notarized. It details the contract, the manipulation, the financial, coercion, everything. Use it however you need to." Elara picked up the envelope, her hands shaking. "Why are you giving this to me?" Victoria stood. "Because you deserve justice, and because my son deserves consequences. I spent years protecting him from his own failures. It's time I stopped." She walked to the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Elara, you were always too good for him. I knew that from the beginning. I just didn't care." She left. Elara sat alone in her office, holding the envelope. Inside was the key to destroying what was left of the Kane family's reputation. She could use it to ensure Marcus never worked in tech again, to make sure Victoria faced legal consequences for what she'd done. But as she sat there, she realized something. She didn't want revenge anymore. She wanted peace. She opened her laptop and drafted an email to Gregory Walsh. "Use the confession for the criminal case against Marcus and Sienna. But regarding Victoria Kane, I'm willing to settle. This privately. She's suffered enough. Dylan knocked on her doorframe. "You okay?" Elara looked up. "Yeah, I think I am." "Good, because I have a surprise for you." He led her downstairs to the EC Dynamics main floor. The entire team was gathered around a large screen. "What's going on?" Elara asked. Dylan grinned. "Just watch." The screen flickered to life. A hospital room appeared, and in the bed, eyes open and alert, was Ava. Elara's breath caught. "Ava, you're awake?" Her sister smiled weakly. "Hey, El. Sorry I've been napping for 3 years. What did I miss?" Tears streamed down Elara's face. "Everything. I'll tell you everything." Dylan wrapped his arm around her. "The doctors cleared her to have visitors. We can go see her right now if you want." Elara couldn't speak. She just nodded, overwhelmed by emotion. They drove to the hospital in comfortable silence. When they arrived, Elara practically ran to Ava's room. Her sister looked thin and pale, but her eyes were bright, alive. "Ava," Elara whispered, taking her hand. "I thought I'd lost you." Ava squeezed back. "You can't get rid of me that easily. Although from what the nurses are telling me, you've been busy. Something about destroying your ex-husband's company." Elara laughed through her tears. "It's a long story." "Good thing I've got time," Ava said. Then her expression grew serious. "El, I'm sorry. For the accident. For putting you through all of this." "Stop," Elara said firmly. "None of this was your fault. Marcus was the drunk driver. Victoria was the one who kept you sedated. You were a victim, just like me." Ava's eyes widened. "Marcus was the one who hit me?" Elara nodded. "I only found out recently. Victoria covered it up to protect him." "That's insane." "I know." They talked for hours. Elara caught Ava up on everything. The contract, the marriage, the abuse, the escape, EC Dynamics, Dylan's return, all of it. When she finished, Ava leaned back against her pillows, processing. "So, you're a tech mogul now?" Elara shrugged. "I guess so." "And you're back with Dylan?" "Maybe. We're taking it slow." Ava grinned. "Liar. I can see it in your eyes. You're crazy about him." Elara blushed. "Okay, fine. Yes, I love him. I never stopped." "Then what are you waiting for?" That night, after leaving the hospital, Dylan drove Elara to the waterfront. They walked along the pier, the city lights reflecting on the water. "I need to tell you something," Dylan said, stopping near the end of the pier. Elara turned to face him, nervous. "What is it?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Elara's heart stopped. 3 years ago, Dylan began, I bought this ring. I was going to propose to you the day after graduation. We were going to start our company together, get married, build a life. But then you disappeared, and I thought I'd lost you forever." He opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond ring. "But you came back," Dylan continued, his voice thick with emotion. "And I realized something. I don't need a perfect moment. I don't need a grand gesture. I just need you. So, Elara Bennett, will you marry me?" Elara's vision blurred with tears. "Yes, God, yes." Dylan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Elara laughed. "This is insane. A month ago I was trapped in a nightmare. Now I'm engaged." "Life moves fast when you're finally free," Dylan said. 6 months later, Marcus Kane was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice. Victoria received 5 years for conspiracy and medical malpractice. Sienna got 6 years for corporate espionage and wire fraud. The verdicts made headlines worldwide. Elara attended the sentencing hearing, not for revenge, but for closure. She sat in the back row and watched as Marcus was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her presence. And that was fine. He was no longer her problem. EC Dynamics flourished beyond anyone's expectations. Within a year, they became the leading robotics company in the world. Echo became the industry standard for emotional AI, and Elara was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. But the moment that meant the most to her happened on a quiet Saturday morning. She and Dylan got married in a small ceremony by the lake. Ava stood beside Elara as maid of honor, healthy and strong, and teasing her sister about crying during the vows. "I'm not crying," Elara insisted, wiping her eyes. "You absolutely are." Ava laughed. Dylan took Elara's hands and looked into her eyes. 3 years ago, I lost you, and I spent every day since then trying to find my way back. Today, I'm promising you that I'll never let you go again. I'll stand beside you, support you, love you, for the rest of our lives." Elara's voice shook as she responded. "You saved me, Dylan, not just from Marcus. You saved me from giving up on myself. You reminded me that I'm worth fighting for, and I promise to spend the rest of my life building something beautiful with you." They kissed as husband and wife, surrounded by friends, family, and the team that helped them build EC Dynamics from nothing. At the reception, Ava raised her glass for a toast. "To my sister, the smartest, strongest, most stubborn person I know. You survived hell and came out the other side more powerful than ever. I'm so proud of you." Elara hugged her sister tightly. "I love you, Ava." "I love you too." As the night went on, Elara found herself standing on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Dylan joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Happy?" he asked. "Deliriously," she admitted. "Is this real? Sometimes I still can't believe it." "It's real," Dylan promised. "And it's just the beginning." Elara leaned back against him, feeling safe and loved and free. 3 years ago, she'd been trapped in a nightmare, controlled, silenced, erased. But she refused to stay there. She fought back. She reclaimed her voice. She rebuilt her life from the ground up. And now, standing on the balcony with the man she loved, she realized something important. Revenge wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about becoming so successful, so happy, so completely whole that their existence no longer mattered. Marcus Kane was in prison. His empire was gone. His name was synonymous with fraud. But Elara Bennett was thriving. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. She turned to face Dylan, a smile playing on her lips. "You know what I realized today?" "What's that?" "I spent 3 years being someone else's prisoner, but I'm never going to be anyone's victim again. From now on, I'm writing my own story. And it's going to be extraordinary." Dylan kissed her forehead. "It already is." And he was right. Elara's story was no longer about the man who tried to break her. It was about the woman who refused to stay broken. It was about resilience, brilliance, love, justice. It was about taking back everything that was stolen and building something even better in its place. And as Elara looked out at the city, her hand in Dylan's, her sister laughing with their friends inside, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. True, complete, unshakable peace. The kind that comes from knowing you survived the worst and came out stronger. The kind that comes from loving and being loved without conditions. The kind that comes from building a life that's entirely, beautifully, unapologetically your own. Marcus Kane tried to bury her, but what he didn't know was this. She wasn't a seed meant to stay underground. She was a phoenix. And phoenixes always rise from the ashes. 2 years after the wedding, EC Dynamics launched the Echo 2.0, a robot capable of not just reading emotions, but helping humans process trauma, grief, and mental health challenges. It revolutionized therapy and counseling worldwide. Elara stood on stage at the product launch, Dylan beside her, and addressed a crowd of thousands. "When I started this journey," she said, "I was broken, trapped, silenced. I thought my story was over before it even began. But I learned something important. Your past doesn't define your future. Your circumstances don't determine your worth. And the people who try to destroy you don't get to write your ending." The crowd erupted in applause. This robot, Elara continued, gesturing to Echo 2.0, was designed to help people heal, to give them tools to process pain, to remind them that they're not alone, because I know what it feels like to be alone, and I know what it feels like to be saved by people who refuse to give up on you. She looked at Dylan, at Ava in the front row, at her team standing in the wings. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. This is for all of us." The ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Backstage, a journalist approached Elara for an interview. "Ms. Bennett, you've become a symbol of resilience for women worldwide. What would you say to someone who's trapped in a situation like you were?" Elara thought carefully. "I'd say this. You are not defined by the people who hurt you. You are not weak for surviving. And there is a life beyond the nightmare. It might not feel possible right now, but I promise you, it exists. Hold on. Fight for yourself. And when the moment comes to walk away, don't look back. Your freedom is worth more than their control." The journalist wiped her eyes. "That's beautiful." Elara smiled. "It's the truth." That night, Elara and Dylan returned to their home, a beautiful modern house overlooking the ocean. Ava was staying with them for the week, and the 3 of them sat on the back deck watching the sun set. "Remember when we were kids," Ava said, "and you used to tell me bedtime stories about princesses who saved themselves?" Elara laughed. "I was such a weird kid." "No," Ava corrected. "You were preparing me for the truth, that real heroines don't wait for rescue. They rescue themselves." Elara reached over and squeezed her sister's hand. "We rescued each other." Dylan raised his glass. "To family, to survival, to building something that lasts." They clinked glasses, the sound ringing out into the evening air. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Elara felt something settle deep in her chest. Contentment. Not because her life was perfect. It wasn't. Not because the pain of the past 3 years had disappeared. It hadn't. But because she'd taken that pain and transformed it into something powerful. She'd turned her trauma into purpose, her suffering into strength, her silence into a voice that inspired millions. Marcus Kane thought he could erase her, but all he did was forge her into something unbreakable. And now, sitting on her deck with the people she loved most, Elara Bennett realized something profound. She'd won. Not because Marcus was in prison, not because her company was successful, but because she was happy. Truly, deeply, genuinely happy. And no one could ever take that away from her again. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt trapped, powerless, or erased, remember Elara's story. Remember that your worth isn't determined by the people who tried to diminish you. Remember that survival is an act of rebellion. And remember that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's living so well, so fully, so joyfully, that your oppressors become footnotes in a story that was always yours to write. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or if it gave you hope that things can get better, we'd love to hear from you. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories that matter. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what part of Elara's journey resonated most with you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Because stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're reminders that we're all capable of rising above our worst moments, that we're all stronger than we think, and that no matter how dark things get, there's always a way forward. Until next time, stay strong, stay brilliant, and never let anyone convince you that you're anything less than extraordinary. You deserve your own happy ending. Go out there and claim it.